It's another holiday and good morning. My name is Pakwesi Shandoff. Now to our very first story this morning, the head of the civil service, Nana Kwesi Jamina, has justified the demand for the payment of neutrality allowance for members of the Civil and Local Government Service Association of Ghana, saying they deserve it and nothing will stop the payments. The essence of the controversial allowance has been questioned, with some suggesting it is at variance with the Civil Service Code of Conduct. But Nana Jamina insists the workers do deserve it.
Know that there's this whole issue of, to the general public, a bit of a misunderstanding of the issue of the neutrality allowance concept. Let me stress on this particular day that if you look at the calculations very carefully, that the context of all this thing started not today, way back 2019, under the leadership of the Honorable Osafo Mafu, and we've been working very hard since 2019 on those who issued and a series of allowances numbering about 48. We've came down to close to 8, and then finally harmonize all that. So the neutrality business really is a representation of a motley lot of allowances. And for, I know that that's been the major concern. People have come out saying that, no, that's what we are supposed to do. So, and all that. Well, you are entitled to your own opinion. That is a fact. But the point still remains that nobody has really contested the fact that the civil service and local government have gone through this negotiation, have gone through the process. And let me stress that in recognition of what this country is going through, negotiations are still continuing, and even the initial stance, to a large extent, have been watered down. So I encourage the people of Ghana to maybe take a bit of look at, be a bit more sympathetic and understanding of the difficulties, the challenges that the civil and local government staff are going through. We are one of the organizations that hardly undertake industrial actions. We are one of the organizations that are much more flexible in terms of understanding of issues, because we are the center of government. We are part of the budget process. We are part of the policy formulation, monitoring, and implementation process. So we clearly understand the challenges of this country. And so I want to encourage the people of Ghana to come to a certain understanding. The good thing is all the people that we have met at the highest level have been understanding. The only issue left is within what context are we doing this, and what are the sacrifices that we'll make. And I'm sure the leadership of CLOSAC, knowing them as they are, will be ready and willing to lead us to make those sacrifices, that this nation will not collapse.
You heard that the head of the civil service, Nana Kwesi Jamina. Now, away from that, Interior Minister Ambrose Derry has reiterated government's commitment to ensure the safety of people living along border towns. He says the refurbishment of border posts in the country and the integration of data analysis systems will strengthen security across Ghana. Mr. Derry was speaking at a ceremony to hand over a renovated border post to the Ghana Immigration Service at Hamile in the Upper West region. Correspondent Rafik Salam has more in the following report.
In the wake of the emergence of the threat of violent extremism or jihadist groups spreading from the Sahel, ongoing global public health emergencies coupled with the activities of smuggling and human trafficking networks, concerns have been raised about the security of the country's borders, considering the inadequate infrastructure and equipment at their disposal. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, with support from the German Federal Foreign Office, embarked on a project codenamed Strengthening Border Security and Border Community Resilience in the Gulf of Guinea, which is aimed at improving regional stability along the northern border regions of the republics of Benin, La Côte d'Ivoire, Togo, and Ghana. Interior Minister Ambrose Derry stated that as part of the project in Ghana, 2 border posts at Kulungugu and Hamile were renovated and equipped with state-of-the-art equipment, including the Migration Information and Data Analysis System.
I have no doubt that the Migration Information and Data Analysis System, MIDAS, will provide the state with the capacity to collect, process, analyze, and share traveler information, as well as support the digitalization of migration data to improve traveler facilitation and control. The installation of this system is timely, especially at this time that our government is championing the Digital Ghana agenda, which seeks to digitize government services, build a biometric national identity register, deploy a digital property address system, mobile money interoperability, and institutionalized paperless port operations, among others.
Ambrose Derry noted that there is the need to increase collaboration to meet the challenges confronting border management agencies.
The mission of the government of Ghana in this respect of border stability is to encourage development that will improve quality of lives of the people in the context of regular migration, not irregular migration. Accordingly, this project would contribute significantly to the fulfillment of this mission. No government works in isolation, and it takes partnerships and support from other governments and institutions to achieve greater heights in development.
Chief of Mission at the IOM, Habibata Winnie Fall, noted that the importance of land borders cannot be overemphasized, considering the ECOWAS protocol of free movement for people and goods. She further threw more light on the project.
This approach covers support for immigration and border infrastructure and equipment, provision of border patrol equipment, digitization of migration data through the provision of Migration Information Data Analysis System, MIDAS, increased community engagement, and strengthening cross-border cooperation. These interventions also draw from IOM decades of experience of working with government in the region of immigration and border management and border security.
German ambassador to Ghana, Daniel Krul, expressed joy in the partnership with the Ghanaian government and hope to initiate more projects in the future.
We are happy to assist. Germany strongly believes in the comprehensive partnership with Ghana. For us, Ghana is our premium partner in West Africa, and we are prepared to continue our commitment and our support only in the field of development cooperation. Last year we committed another 100 million for projects here in Ghana. And we are happy to continue this dialogue with your government.
Comptroller of the Ghana Immigration Service, Lawyer Kwame Eswotechi, revealed that plans are afoot to establish a forward operating base at Hamilapa following the release of 100 acres of land to the service by the Harper Trustland Council.
A typical example of community support is a 100-acre parcel of land which was given to the service by the chief and people of Hama Traditional Council for their proposed forward operating base. I deployed officers from the headquarters to have a look at the land, and the service is taking the necessary steps to finalize arrangement with the chief for the land. This is highly commendable, and we say thank you to the Hapakoro and his people.
Almost all the speeches that were delivered here centered on the need to be secured. And so for them, security is a shared responsibility. Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam, Hamele.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Boundary Commission is constructing 50 new identifiable pillars as an international boundary marking between Ghana and Togo. Head of JoyNews Security, Dexter Mefapao, has been engaging the National Coordinator, Major General Emmanuel Kotia.
So the meeting today is to take this opportunity to rather sensitize the immigration and custom officials and other officials of the local administration who are within this area, and to inform them that this exercise is going to take off. We're going to have a local sensitization of the local communities on the 10th in Aflao, and then on the 11th, we will be in Akano to have a joint meeting with the locals from Togo and Ghana here in Akano.
On the 11th of April, I arranged with my counterpart in Togo. We went and met him and had a discussion on how we can work together to solve some of these problems. So it is good that you are coming in now.
We're looking forward of launching the sensitization program, which will be done in Denu, jointly with the Togolese from the 10th on the 10th of May. Then we'll move down here to do a joint program with the Togolese as well on the 11th of May. Now, the essence of the sensitization is to sensitize all those living along the boundaries about the reaffirmation exercise that we're going to do. The reaffirmation exercise involves construction of 3 major pillars: Pillar 1, Pillar 2, Pillar 3, and 4, and 4. So that is 4 actually, but Pillar 1 is out because it's going to be a monument. And intermediary pillars. In addition, we will have border crossing point pillars. So invariably, we're going to have 4 types of pillars that are going to be done, and we're going to have each pillar going down to about 2 meters and above about 2 meters, which is completely quite different from the old type of pillars that we have.
Do we know how many pillars exactly are supposed to be erected?
Between Aflao and Kano, 50 pillars. Either they're going to be a combination of main pillars, intermediate pillars, and then border crossing post pillars.
Okay. But in terms of costing, I'm sure when we talk about this, it always comes up. You've talked about the partnership with the AU amongst others. How much exactly is it expected to cost us as a nation to bring this up? And why is it just Ghana's side that is erecting these pillars and not the Togo side?
It's not Ghana's side which is erecting, it's both sides. It's a collaboration of both Ghana and Togo boundary commissions. And let me also emphasize, it's a land boundary pillars that we are doing. So both Ghana and Togo are jointly presenting these pillars. Both Ghana and Togo are jointly presenting these pillars for the African Union Boundary Commission to bid for a contractor who is going to do it. So far as cost concept aspect is concerned, there is not going to be any costs implications for Ghana and Togo governments, but it's going to be borne by the African Union Boundary Commission because it's part of the efforts of the African Union Boundary Commission as border strategy to help countries to redemarcate and reaffirm their borders. So
by this collaboration, can we safely then say that there's no border or boundary dispute between Ghana and Togo?
For now, this is the first phase. And in the first phase, we've identified a number of boundary pillars have been removed. That encourages encroaches, that encourages cross-border movements that probably people cannot monitor, and that also creates problems so far as demarcation issues are concerned. Now, within that period and within that area, we expect that there will not be any problem. And we have all agreed using the legacy documents that exist, that those are the international boundary lines that we have to affirm. There may be other issues in other parts of the boundary line between Ghana and Togo, but this is the first phase, and we're going to tackle others as we go on. Before the end of the year, we're hoping to do a number of it.
Okay. This is where we are now. We are the Akano side of the Ghana-Togo border, and it's interesting the history that we've had and the lessons that we've had from this particular side. We are told is a land that can be described as a no man's land as we speak, because the ECOWAS has acquired it, and this is the border. So I'm sure once we pan the camera around, you get to see what it entails. It's not just Aflao that we have the Akano side. Reporting for JoyNews, MFA Pau from Akano.
Desmond Tombo has been elected the new Patriotic Party's chairman for the North Dai constituency in the Volta region. The 30-year-old polled a total of 210 out of the 386 votes, beating Wisdom Ajame, who polled 174 votes at the end of the contest. There is more on the following report by my colleague Fred Kwame Asari.
It was a fiercely contested election with many tipping Wisdom Ajangbe to win the chairman race due to his age, experience and blessing of some old folks of the NPP. The delegates, mostly youth, however, made an emphatic statement of their desire to be led by a youth who would champion their quest. They overwhelmingly endorsed the candidature of the former Northern youth organizer, Desmond Tumbo. Mr. Tumbo promised to work with the rank and file of the party to consolidate the gains made in the 2020 general elections.
In 2016, we had 1,525 votes for the presidential. 2020, we increased about some 80-90%. So most of the membership we have now, that increase our votes is from the youth. So we are seeing it as an opportunity to say, let a youth who understands the story and the predicaments of the youth take the front, the center stage, and change the narrative, the status quo, so that we'll be able to break the eight. It's not like I've been given an opportunity. It's a responsibility to make sure I bring everybody on board. So we can only be unified and break the eight. Breaking the eight is going to be very phenomenal. It's going to be legendary. So we must be united and make sure that we do what is expected of us. I'm not going to say that I'm too proud to say I am the youngest chairman in the region or the country. But the fact is that this is not for only the youth in North Dine, not only for the youth in Volta region, but the youth across the globe, the country, so that it will give them the opportunity that everybody is capable of leading whatever position you want to lead in whatever spheres of life. So that's it. I'm telling you.
The North Dine NPP Secretary-elect Emmanuel Baku said the current crop of leaders aim at winning the parliamentary seat for the NPP.
We are ready to work again to retain the power, and this time to win a parliamentary seat for North Dine. Starting from today, all hands on deck. We are going to work hard. We are preaching unity. All those who have agreed, we should bury our differences. We have a common enemy, which is the NDC. Therefore, let's all come on board and fight the common enemy to retain power come 2024.
Fred Kwame Asari, JoyNews, and Fuegan.
It's Eid, the festival climaxes the month of Ramadan, now ahead of celebration, usually characterized by national prayers, feasting, and merrymaking. Mao Sinumon finds out how the Muslim community in parts of Accra is getting ready for the big day.
In less than a day, Muslims will mark the end of the 30-day fast with various festivities. At the New Town and Nima Market in Accra, trading and shopping were at their high peaks. A good number of shoppers were largely Muslims who are trooped to these centers to do their last-minute shopping. They bought foodstuff, clothing and other festive accessories to mark the Eid with their families. Some of the shoppers shared their excitement with JoyNews as they prepared for tomorrow's celebration.
We are here to buy chicken for Salah. So far, we went to Eid today, and some of us will be going for Eid tomorrow, inshallah. So we are just here for the chicken. After the chicken, we have to go to market, buy tomatoes, onions, and other ingredients for the stew. The Salah is 3 days. We will celebrate it today, tomorrow, and tomorrow next.
Very, very prepared. You know, it comes once in a year, so you have to, wear something nice. Make sure you also look good in your outfit, and then cook nice food. In fact, eat well and then enjoy. That's all. Hey, you have for me there fufu ni like soup. I don't joke with that one.
Preparation is ongoing. We've already been to the mosque to pray, but we are still joining tomorrow's celebration. We are buying for the kids. We've got some, and not all.
Some of the traders who had cashed in on this also told JoyNews that they have recorded very high sales.
So mostly this is what we deal in always. But when it gets to Salah, we bring more goods like Salah goods, the one that people normally purchases for Salah. Just as to say, because this Salah, the movement or the purchase is high. From about 3 days ago, we're making more sales than initially.
By God's grace, they are buying in spite of high prices.
So far here we brought about 500, and as we can see, we are almost done. And tomorrow is the Eid. So I would say Alhamdulillah, things are moving the way it should be.
For the first time after 2 years of ban on social gatherings and other outdoor activities, Muslims are poised to celebrate this year's Eid to the fullest. Mausi Numon's report for JoyNews.
On that note, happy Eid to all Muslims. This is why I part company with you. My name is Pakwesi Shandoff. I live in the company, as always, with Benjamin, and I'm Benis. Do have a pleasant day. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you for joining us for the news review this Tuesday morning, and happy Eid al-Fitr to you, in case you're just joining us. And I would like to say same to Liz Hafen, a Asari media consultant. Liz, a very good morning to you, and happy Eid.
Thank you. And I want to wish all Muslims a happy Eid.
Right. I see it's an orange Eid. That's the theme. You're donning orange and I'm donning yellow. Almost color coding. But here we are, another beautiful Tuesday morning. And we're going to, it's a lean morning when it comes to the newspapers. So we're going to content ourselves with the media portals, beginning with myjoyonline.com. And we'll get into other matters. But before we even do that, or maybe as we do that, because the stories are here as well, yesterday, we had that confab with the nation, former President John Dramani Mahama interacting with Ghana and Ghanaians and talking about our current economic state, the e-levy, the human rights situation, among many other things, development on different fronts. And maybe this quote is reflective or gives a summary picture of what he says. An assessment of our current conditions shows that what is happening now bears very little or no resemblance to what was promised. There is a sharp disparity between promise and practice. That is John Dramani Mahama in that pretty lengthy delivery yesterday. I'm sure you followed bits and pieces of what he said, Liz. What is your quick reflection on everything he said? He has promised that a future NDC government would lift the e-levy. What do you make of what the former president said yesterday?
I listened to the former president yesterday, and I think that he raised a lot of issues that are being swept under the carpet. I believe that if a government or if a party makes promises and comes into office, then it behoves on them to make sure that they deliver. And unfortunately, that is not what we are seeing. A lot of the promises that were made are left hanging. And so if you listen to former president yesterday, you realize that he recalled a lot of things that had been promised and a lot of things that had not been done. And it's where we are, is where we are at now. I believe that the government needs to wake up, if I should call it so, because people are really waiting for them to fulfill promises that they made. And if that is not done, then you realize that a lot of people will begin to lose faith in the government. And then it probably would result in apathy when it comes to the next elections, because people are not seeing what was expected to happen. The removal of the e-levy, I have listened to arguments with regards to the e-levy, and I've said to myself that we need the money to really fix things in the country. We can't always go borrowing. Is the e-levy the best option? Maybe not. Are there options? Maybe we need to investigate if there are options. If we haven't done so, then we need to start doing so. My concern for the
but if we had an alternative, would you, as a citizen, be content if the e-levy were taken away? How do you feel about that?
It will depend. It will depend. If is the money going to be used for the purposes for which it is being raised?
Right.
We realize that, well, a lot of money has come in and there's still questions as to what the monies have been used for. And we are still asking for accountability. And you need to be able to convince the public that what you're collecting is good for all of us. Just saying it and leaving it at that will not augur well with the people. They want to see progress. They want to see development. They want to see an increase in their standards of living.
Right.
And if that is not happening, then people will definitely not be willing to pay taxes because the taxes are not auguring well for their well-being.
And I guess that's been the call of many people, hasn't it? They've insinuated that it's not a matter of paying taxes. We would gladly pay more, but we also want to see more done with what we are paying. But then, do you fundamentally agree with John Dramani Mahama when he says most Ghanaians feel they were hoodwinked, tricked, deceived, and this is manifesting in their personal livelihood and their daily struggles? Do you then agree with him when he says that?
Is that political talk?
I wouldn't know. You would have to ask John Dramani Mahama.
Because I know that no government has been perfect. No government has fulfilled all its promises. Each time there's a government, there's still gaps. There's still people who are calling for more. There's still people who are not seeing things being done for them. But generally, on the whole, if you look at the two governments, you realize that there was more of infrastructural development and more of concern towards the masses during the NDC tenure than there is today. So if he's calling for the government to be up and doing, it's because of what the people are saying. And the cry of the people is very important. If you realize of late, we are having a lot of labor unrest, and this is because people's salaries have remained the same over a long period of time, and yet they're paying more and more taxes and nothing is happening. I think that our productivity levels as a nation is very low, and therefore we need to do a lot about it. If we had a very productive nation and we were earning more through what we were producing, we probably would be less critical and less concerned about the taxes that are being charged, because we'll be earning more as a nation. As it is, we're paying more taxes, we're not earning anything, and yet we're still paying more taxes, and we are not seeing it resulting in the kind of development that we would want to see as a people.
I just want us to wrap on a few other things that the president said so we can move on to other emerging or developing stories as well. But I do recall that yesterday in speaking, he also reiterated that call that he's been making, that we need better accountability when it comes to our COVID-19 spending. And that it's something he's always spoken about. And all the money we seem to have got, where did it go? How did we expend it? Would you support that call?
Yes, I will. We need accountability and transparency. And if in government you have collected monies from outside to help in a pandemic, you need to be able to tell the people that the monies that came in this and this and this is what it was used for. When you do so, then you gain the confidence of the people in the fact that they understand what the monies have been used for. They know that it wasn't spent recklessly. They know how well it has gone to help in recovering the nation, because we are undergoing some recovery. The pandemic has hit other nations far worse than it did us. And so I think the government needs to really come out and tell us, because it told us the monies it had received, and other people knew the monies that had been received. Come out and tell us. The World Bank, I believe that wherever you get the money from, you'd have to give them a report. And so if you're giving them a report, why should the report be hidden from your citizens if the monies have been used for them?
And just to wrap on this point, because it affects you, it affects me in our practice. And it is also reflective of some of what Sam Jonah, Sir Sam Jonah and others have said. I want you to contemplate this. John Dramani Mahama also says, no government in our recent history has demonstrated a lack of democratic temperament in dealing with issues of dissent and public criticism than the one headed by President Akufo-Addo. Do you agree with him, Liz? And if you don't, what are your reasons?
I'm trying to recall a few incidents that happened over the NDC era with regard to journalists and their work. And I think that both sides have both
sides are culpable.
I want to choose the word carefully. No, I didn't want to say culpable, but yes, both sides have been culpable. Both sides have not been too welcoming when it comes to news that is not palatable to them, and their followers or their foot soldiers have reacted in certain ways. But again, under the NPP, I think that I've seen more action from the police, should I say government institutions, against journalists than just ordinary people coming up against journalists and maltreating or harassing them. So both sides have not been very open and very welcoming towards journalists, especially when what they're reporting is not what they want to see or what they want to hear. And you realize that the followers of the parties are the ones who are more open to attacking journalists and shaming them or destroying their properties than the institutions per se.
Let me just ask you quickly on the e-levy. Have you had any transactions, made any transactions since it hit on Sunday, May the 1st? What have your experiences been? Or if not, what have you heard?
I have done a lot of transactions, and I keep saying that for me, it's comfortable to transfer money from my phone without having to go anywhere. It bothers me, especially when you want to go to the bank and you're stuck in the traffic for about an hour, and you can do it over your phone. Mine is the threshold of 100 CDs. I think that it won't go well for majority of the people because that figure is low. And if you're charging 1.5 on 100 CDs after the first 100 CDs, and somebody earns, let's say, 500 CDs and has to transfer 300 CDs to family, maybe he's in Accra, his family is in some village somewhere, and he has to transfer money, and you take that amount of money out of 200 CDs that he's sending. It's not little when he looks at it, because whatever will be left for him would be far less than what he anticipated he would have. But again, it will cost less for him to transfer over a Momo than to pick up transport and go and give the money physically. But I think that we still need to look at those who are below a certain bracket.
Let's move away from the politics for a bit and come down to real life issues. We know about bigamy in our country, but in Nigeria, from what a few friends have told me, there are different dynamics apart from even the Muslim community. And of course, we celebrate our Muslims. At the end, I'll give you an opportunity to deliver an Eid al-Fitr message. But there's this actor, Yul Idochi, and he is son of one of the most famous actors in Nigeria. I think it's Peter Idochi. And he's been married for about 16 years. But he married a second wife in recent times, and he's been hailing his first wife. Here's why I think maybe you might want to take a swipe at it. He has said that marrying a second wife is the best decision in his life. It's the best decision he has ever made. And social media has been agog with all kinds of comments. When you look at the first wife and the second wife, even if you're just looking at aesthetic bits, some people say, oh, she is trim, slim, and all of that. The second wife has a bit more flesh. I'm being cautious about my description so I don't come across as anything. But these are things that people have looked at on social media and said, so after 16 years, your wife maintains herself this way, and yet you still do X, Y, Z. Can there be any justification as far as Yul Idochi is concerned? How do you find it? Should it be a problem if he wants a second wife? He says it's the best thing that ever happened to him.
I believe that everyone has choices. But if you said bigamy, then bigamy, I think it's marrying.
No, it's in our context. So I'm just using bigamy in our context.
Okay, so polygamy.
Yes, polygamy to be.
It's more of polygamy. Well, I believe that in Africa we don't frown on polygamy. I mean, if you marry under the ordinance, then you have committed yourself to having one wife and one wife only. But if you marry customarily or under traditional laws, then you probably can take more than one wife. And I'm talking about in Ghana. I don't know what pertains in Nigeria. But is it because he's a celebrity that his private business is all over the place? I would have thought that he would have dealt with it privately and people would have left him in his space.
You know what's interesting? He actually posted on social media. He had been posting a lot about his first wife, hailing her, saying that without her, he wouldn't be where he is. There were times when he had no job and all of that. She took care of him. And now, of course, he's well-to-do. He's been hailing his first wife. He's given her props. But then he also comes on social media. He puts forth his other woman, who is now a second wife, so to speak, and a child they have. So he has a baby with this woman, Star, and it's a pretty long name. So people didn't even have to take him on. He came out, put it on social media, and then people descended on him. And he said, curiously, he had attempted, getting into politics and so many things. People had not sent him or taken him on or put him out on social media like that. But once he talks about getting a second wife, then everyone is on his case. That's just some context for you as you go on.
I find it very interesting, and I'm wondering why people are on his case. He has a choice to have two wives, unless he's married under the ordinance.
Right.
And so if he's putting it out there, he probably is putting information out there. Is he the only one who has two wives? And then he said he has a child with the second wife, and I'm assuming he doesn't have children with the first one. If that is the case, then maybe that's why people will be shouting.
I believe he does have children with the first wife.
So then it's his choice. I think that it's his life to live. I wouldn't hurt my head over what he does, seriously.
Right. Anyway, and the first wife reacted on social media with these words: "May God judge you both." That is the simple message she put there. The first wife reacting to the post he put up on social media about his second wife and the baby. May God judge you both.
So she probably is not happy about the fact that he's married a second wife. But why not? I mean, if the relationship between her and her husband are good, and he takes on another woman, and I know that in certain traditions, before a man can marry a second wife, the first wife would have to give consent. So if she didn't give consent, why didn't he ask her permission?
In fact, he talks about that. He says it was his, he is happy that he did it he didn't need to seek her consent on the matter. It is clear that she would have been averse to any idea of a second wife. So he went ahead. And again, it has connotations because he starts talking a long time ago about his financial lack of dependence and now his financial independence. So now he is saying, and that is where a lot of the women I've seen on social media feel aggrieved. They feel when you were dependent on her, I mean, you didn't attempt this, but now that you are enjoying some financial independence, you want to go ahead and do this. Does that make him wrong?
I'm not a judge. I won't say it makes him wrong, but I think that the first wife would definitely be hurt, because when you had nothing, she sacrificed everything for you. And when she sacrificed everything for you, now that you have, instead of taking care of her and her children, you think that, well, you have more that you can spread around. So definitely she will be aggrieved. I think that if the culture does not ask that he seeks her permission, then maybe he's right. But culturally, traditionally, I know that if you're taking on a second wife, you need the permission of the first wife. So if you didn't have it from her, then you definitely won't have it easy with her.
Mm. Anyway, so let's move away. And I'm told he may not exactly have children with the first wife, though I intimated that he did. But here's something else. I just want to come back to the e-levy, moving away from his family business. E-levy will apply to your tithes. This is well on myjoyonline.com. That's the Telecoms Chambers CEO, Engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe. This got me interested as he interacted with me and later on the Super Morning Show as well on radio. Initially, we had conversations about tithing and all of that. And speaking to Deputy Finance Minister Dr. John Kuma, he explained that, these were not going to be affected, your zakat, if you're Muslim, or your tithe. And then again, that some of these churches would have to get merchant accounts and all of that. But per what Dr. Ashigbe is saying, even your tithes, a tenth of what you've earned in a month, could be affected by the e-levy. I put it in the context of people saying in the past that we ought to tax churches. What is your reflection on all of this?
Well, I didn't think that it would affect churches, or it would affect taxes and tithes. So I really haven't given it any mind so far. But why would we want to be taxing tithes and churches now if we haven't enforced a law to that? So
maybe just to add some context, if you are paying it via mobile money, it will be affected. Of course, if you're carrying it to church, it will not be affected. But if you decide to pay it via mobile money, that is when you'll be hit.
I don't know what to say about that. If that's what the e-levy law says, then probably everybody's caught in that net. So would people stop paying their tithes over electronic payments and rather carry the physical cash to church? I don't know. It depends on individuals. But
maybe let me couch it in this manner. If you were paying your tithes and you had no other option but to pay it via Momo because of where you were, and obviously you're giving a specific amount. Let's say you're paying 2,000 cedis, and because of course, the e-levy and the other taxes you have to pay, you're not going to have exactly 2,000 cedis, which means you must top up. How would that make you feel?
I'd pay it. If I had no alternative, I'd pay it. I'd pay it because I think that my commitment, first and foremost, is to God and to the things I do with regards to God. And as a Christian, I would pay my tithe no matter what. So if the only option was to pay it over the electronic device, I will do it. As to whether it's taxed or it's not taxed, I believe that whatever I earn and whatever I get is a blessing from God. So I'll do it without hesitation, but maybe not everybody will.
Let's get back into other matters, and I want to talk labor now. It's been an interesting few days as we've engaged the TUC and CLOGSAG and other groupings on labor conditions. It's interesting because the TUC's General Secretary, Dr. Yauba, has been insisting that government should up their wages by some 20%, that in fact it should match inflationary levels. Our inflation as of yesterday, sometime around yesterday, stood at around 19.4%. They are calling for 20%. There are also other concerns. They state, for example, that a liter of fuel is about 80% of our minimum wage. And they raise other concerns, saying that people are struggling. People are not able to make ends meet. When you look at that, and you look at the call for the taxes on petroleum products to be scrapped, and on May Day, Mr. President says, we can't do that because that will take away some 4 billion Ghana cedis, and so we can't afford to do that. We hear from CLOGSAG's leader as well saying that they don't usually embark on industrial actions. So if you see them out there, it means things are really bad. How do you feel as part of the Labour Front and how government has reacted so far?
Things are very bad. I think that a lot more attention needs to be paid to public sector workers. But if you're not paid well, your productivity levels would go even lower. And therefore, you probably would not be producing as efficiently and as effectively as you should, because you're looking for other sources of income to support your daily life or to keep your head above water. And when you look at the salaries of public sector workers, if you have 2-3 children, then I ask, where do they get money from to pay their children's school fees? Let's not talk about feeding in the home. Let's not talk about transportation to school or transportation to work. So people are in dire straits, very dire straits. And I was reading up on single spine because I realized working in the public sector, you're on a single pay policy that has been in effect for almost 10, if not more years, and nothing has been done with the policy. The policy was supposed to address a system. It was supposed to make public sector pay better, was supposed to make sure that salaries were, should I say, at par with those in the private sector. It has not been reviewed over 10 years. You have imposed taxes upon taxes, but people's salaries have not increased. Maybe if it has increased minimally. If you look at the daily wage and you look at somebody who earns a daily wage at the end of the month, if he has to pay rent, if he has to pay electricity, if he has to pay water, if he has to feed a family of 3 or 4, himself, his wife, 2 children. Then you ask, where is he getting the money from? And so how would we be able to fight corruption if those in the public sector are not being paid well? And yet they have to live their lives up to a certain standard. Gone are the days where you'd see people walking long hours to go to work. And they used to work because they felt that at the end of the month, they got something substantial. It's not like that anymore. And so people will do all kinds of things to have money in their pocket. So I believe that the government really has to wake up to the concerns of those on the labor front. I believe that if you look at the lifestyle of people at the top, I'm talking management levels, and you look at those who are doing the actual work and sweating it out, you realize that there's a vast disparity between those at the top and those who are doing the actual work. You would say that those at the top are the ones who have gone to school and have the brains and they are mapping out what everybody else has to do. But then when you look at the salary ranges, it should range such that even those at the very bottom are have their heads above water, are living a kind of life that would make them happy, would make them comfortable. We are not seeing that now, and that's why there's agitation everywhere, because people are not really satisfied with what they're earning.
Let me just do this. I see some interesting comments coming through on social media, on Facebook to be specific. Let me just share a few as we get ready to wrap. This one says, it's from Kwabena Entry, who says, good morning, Ben. I'm Kwabena Entry, watching you live from Sifiri also. We're not against paying taxes, but the taxes paid must be put to good use to benefit the citizenry. And you send your regards, but we don't do that. So you send your regards to someone specific in the political fray. I would avoid that. Justice Ponyo says, JM will cancel the e-levy in 2025. Will he now? Will he now? That is even if he gets the nod. You know, I've learned from political cycles and things I've seen. Look at VAT. Kumi prekon, siemi prekon, viemi prekon. And when they came into power, they added more prekon. So that's just the way it is. Percy Randolph says, the church and their money. If you pay your tithes by Momo, e-levy will take its share. I am happy. How I wish the church would be taxed. Now this conversation, And then Hafiz Ibrahim Happy says, the salary matter, very necessary. So those are some of the comments you've been sharing on social media. Different strokes for different folks. But as we get ready to wrap the conversation, and before I take your thoughts, Liz, on the Eid, maybe leave you with giving a message, I want your take on this. And let me premise it by saying that I am very Catholic, staunch one, and proudly so, and I am very anti-abortion. But the U.S. top court, there appears to have been a leak about a ruling repealing its abortion law. And the nationwide legal right to abortion has been described as egregiously wrong in the leaked document. Now, this is on the BBC. It's, in fact, their major story this hour. In Ghana, we've had our own stints with abortion here and there and the rights attached to it. Of course, in certain circumstances, per the law, you can have it, but in certain specific facilities and all of that. What do you think about this, though? Because I see it gathering momentum across the world in different places. In the US, Texas has its own thing, depending on the state arrangements. But for you, what do you think about this and for Ghana moving forward?
It's difficult for me to talk about it because I've seen cases where if you had asked me, I'd have said outright that I'd agree for whoever was seeking abortion in that circumstance to abort. But I wouldn't abort, no matter what. I won't abort. Like you, I'm staunch and I'm Christian, and I won't give it a second thought. But I've been in places like Sierra Leone and Liberia after their civil wars, after their disruptions.
Right.
Where
and people have been raped. Right.
Where you have ladies who got pregnant out of rape.
Right.
Guys they don't know. Guys they would never come into contact with again. And if in the early stages, those ladies wanted to abort, I probably would have shut an eye and given them the go ahead, because those who did not abort and carried the pregnancy through and delivered have such hate for the children that they have born that I don't know how to describe it. You just can't imagine it. So for some of those children, we had to take them away from their mothers because the anger in their mother was against the father who had impregnated them, but the children were bearing the brunt for it. You know, so for some of these things, you won't say that, oh, okay, let her have the child, because if she has the child, it's her child, she'll carry it. She doesn't even want the child in the first place. You know, so it becomes very difficult and very dicey, especially when you go across and you see why people want to abort. But if it's through consent of yours to have sex with a particular person and you get pregnant out of that relationship and you want to abort, then I would be angry with you, because then if you knew you didn't want to have a child, you shouldn't have gone to play around in the first place.
Anyway, so to wrap the conversation, Aaron Babako Kokomisa says, good morning to you. Most Ghanaians have embraced their fears. Most Ghanaians that are mobile money wallet subscribers have been put into critical thinking conditions, whether to cancel their subscriptions or not. My point is that the introduction of an electronic levy is going to automatically increase the prices of goods and services in the system. And secondly, is going to cancel certain small businesses off the system. May that money generated from the electronic levy be put to good use. And that is our hope for all of us, because like it or not, at some point will be hit by it. Do you have a message, an Eid message that we can wrap the conversation with to our Muslim brothers and sisters?
I normally don't give Eid messages. I do to a few individuals who are close friends. So let me say that on the occasion of Eid, I wish our Muslim brothers and sisters well. I pray God's blessings upon them. I pray that this period of fasting, I know for many of them, it's also a period of stock taking, and they program themselves for the days ahead of them till the next fasting period. A lot of them look to helping those who are not well-to-do, in giving alms and in making sure that they are able to feed those who probably are not being fed. I want to say congratulations to them, and I pray God's blessings upon them, and I pray that they'll continue to stand in unity, and I pray that as a nation, we would continue to see a good relationship between Christians, Muslims, and all other religions.
Amen. Amen to that. And thank you too, Liz, for joining the conversation. And do have a happy holiday.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right. And that's how we wrap it up for this morning's news review. Thank you for watching. But up next, we have sports coming your way. And after that, we get into our big stories. I'll be looking at Ghana at a crossroads and what this really means for the country. Later on, we'll find out why some people in the Bono East region are refusing to take COVID-19 vaccination. All of that on the AM show. Do stay.
The collection of the e-levy began yesterday. And like a slap in the face, it began on May Day. When we are supposed to be celebrating workers, we are celebrating a new tax imposed on them. And already there's a litany of complaints about the implementation. I've heard complaints of transfers of under 100 cedis being subject to tax contrary to the law. And I've heard others say that they sent 1,000 cedis and paid no additional tax. Clearly, the Ghana Revenue Authority and those responsible for this tax were not ready for its implementation. Government's desperation to tax Ghanaians to get this nation out of the hellhole it has dumped us will not succeed because government's own budget proposals show that the e-levy will not make any significant contribution in resolving our problems, but will exert an adverse toll on the people of Ghana. We in the NDC do not oppose taxation as a principle. We will not be pretentious and couch fanciful slogans to condemn the principle of taxation like the NPP did in the past. We are, however, implacably opposed to distortionary and burdensome taxes like the e-levy that only force Ghanaians to endure more suffering. A new National Democratic Congress government, God willing, and with the votes of the sovereign people of Ghana in 2025, will repeal the e-levy act. Even as this government remains fixated with taxing their way out of economic mismanagement, the Akufo-Addo government has been wasteful. They failed to demonstrate prudence in public financial management. The people of Ghana cannot be called upon to pay more taxes only for the accruing money belonging to the people to be dubiously and wastefully shared amongst family and friends through various fraudulent procurement practices. The creature comforts of the president and his officials cannot be more paramount than the need to protect the public purse and make savings that can be invested in more useful ventures such as education, health, and social housing for Ghanaians.
Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Now we get into our big stories, and we're starting with the very first one. We're talking about Ghana at a crossroads. That's how the NDC and John Dramani Mahama couched their interaction yesterday. Like you heard him, he talks about the e-levy, he talks about economic mismanagement, he talks about the development of our country, among other things. And he even talks about the Black Stars and what their qualification means for us. But let me just take a quick look at some of what he said. As you can see on your screen, he started with talk about the e-levy. That the collection of the e-levy started yesterday, and already there are a litany. Well, yesterday being the 1st of May, May Day, and there are, there is a litany of complaints about the implementation and all of that. We'll be getting into all the relevant issues with our guests this morning. Elikem Kotoko. He is a member of the NDC's communications team, and his counterpart, Kofi Ameya, who is also a member of the NPP's communications team. They join us for a discussion this morning, right here in the studio. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for making the time, and a happy Eid al-Fitr to both of you.
Eid al-Fitr.
Fitr.
Okay. Are you a Muslim?
No, I'm not.
Your ability to...
But I'm careful about pronunciation. It's important.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I don't know. Are they still giving out the rice and meat and?
So this is not the big one.
You want some?
This is the
not really.
This is the more. This is the smaller one.
Oh, okay.
The bigger one
is the Sanla.
Is the second one.
Oh, okay.
Either
take the chicken, not the.
But the other one, you get the cows. And,
okay.
Oh, you want to supply some chickens?
Not really. I don't have the means to.
You don't have the means.
Oh, is the economy that bad?
I don't have the.
Then no, Elikem is taking you on.
No, I'll get.
Is it because you can't afford the chicken?
Why can't you afford it, my brother? Oh, Charlie, Nana.
Don't worry. Oh, what does Nanadu got to do?
All right, guys, let's hold it right there and get into the meat of the matter. I'll start with you.
With me?
Yes, with you.
Oh, okay.
You've followed what the former president said. I mean, it was quite a lot, lengthy, and we've put together quite a lot of what he says. But in a summary manner, what are your quick reflections on John Dramani Mahama when he talks about the economy, when he says they'll scrap the e-levy when they come to power, if they come to power, and the many other things he says? He talks about borrowing, for example. He says you have the West this, the West that, the West that in the Fourth Republic, and that what you've borrowed versus what you've been able to do are largely not commensurable. What's your quick reaction?
Very good morning to your good self and my brother here, Elikem, and to your cherished viewers as well. Yesterday, when I watched and listened, and later I read the statement of the former president, I sincerely and respectfully feel that he has outlived his usefulness in terms of ability.
He has outlived his usefulness?
Yes, to this country, especially when it comes to the management of the country and its economy. Clearly, he wanted to take advantage of the anxiety of the people, the frustration and the challenging moment that we are all going through as a result of the cascading effects of the global pandemic, COVID-19, and then the recently war between Russia and Ukraine. Unfortunately, when I was listening to him, I took myself off the political scene and wanted to listen to somebody who wants to become a leader of the country once again.
Right.
And as a young person, what will inspire me, even though I will never support his political party, even though I will never support him, but what will inspire me to be able to say, okay, God forbid, and I perish that thought, if MPP is not around, we will have a leader that will be able to steer this country fast forward than it currently is. And clearly, he was not able to give me that impression. He was not able to give me that hope. Because when you go into the nitty-gritty, the fine details of his statement, you will find a lot of hypocrisy in
like what?
For example, he poo-pooed the fact that what we are experiencing, COVID has no bearing on it. It's as a result of our mismanagement. That is
that what he said? He insinuated that we were doing certain things that were not inuring to the benefit of our economy. Mm-hmm. And of course, COVID-19 and the Ukraine-Russia crisis has only, impacted that further. In fact, if I'm to quote some of what he said, long before COVID, it was evident that the economy was being mismanaged. I cautioned against this mismanagement. By 2019, our deficit and debt figures had already reached distress levels. This is a fact which was recently corroborated by the World Bank through its country representative in Ghana. All of what he says here, you can talk about. It is true that he was cautioning about this before, we suffered COVID and the whole bit about Ukraine and Russia. And it is true what he says about the fact that it's been recently corroborated by the World Bank. I mean, that is out there.
The truth of the matter is that when we inherited the economy from him, we were doing a gross domestic product of 3.4%. We averagely were doing 7% yearly until COVID struck.
In 2014, we had our highest. We had done something over 8%. Would you talk about that as well?
You are talking
when
about
we have these
2011,
conversations, I want us to be very, not lean towards one end, but be very...
You are talking about 2011 when we did 14%. But you should ask yourself the question that you did 14% in 2011. What happened? Then 5 years down the line, you were doing 3.4%. And we came and we ballooned it, we doubled it. So we are talking about an economy that was doing relatively better than you were doing until COVID struck. But I'm saying that he is trying to create the impression that COVID has little to do with what we are going through. And I beg to differ, and I'm talking about the hypocrisy because when he went to Harvard, just recently, the 24th African Business Conference, Harvard Business School. This is what he said, the former president. The pandemic is estimated to have dragged about 55 million more people into poverty in Africa and exposed another 46 million more to the risk of hunger and malnutrition. Indeed, 70% of hunger in Africa, which had already been on the rise since 2014, is directly attributed to the pandemic. He went further to say, data from the Economic Commission of Africa, ECA, shows that the COVID-19 created the continent's worst recession in 50 years, with real GDP shrinking by an average of 3% in 2020. Before the pandemic, poverty reduction was already a major challenge.
And I followed this, and indeed, I noticed that members of your party took it in a certain context because they said, I even saw headlines in newspapers saying that Mahama had conceded or he had vindicated Dr. Bawumia. So I get exactly what the point is that you're making. But then what is the thrust of what you're saying?
I am seeing the hypocrisy. On one hand, he admitted that the pandemic, the cascading effect of the pandemic, had a very telling effect on the economy, not just Ghana's economy. And for just so you know, once we live in a global village, the fact that another country is suffering, you indirectly will be suffering as well. So he is talking about the fact that Africa will be suffering. And we have the trade agreement. That is one of the, for me, hypocrisy that he exhibited yesterday. Another one was the fact that he painted a picture as though the government is insensitive to the sufferings of the good people of this country, and it doesn't listen, it's in denial of the challenging moment in which we find ourselves in. And I beg to differ, because when you read paragraph 20 of the budget statement, that was read in November, it admits clearly that we are suffering, and the government and the president, that's what keeps him awake at night. In fact, when you go back to paragraph 4, the finance minister admits that indeed the COVID-19 has come to expose some of our weaknesses in the system. And indeed, when you go back to the vice president, when he was making that economic lecture, he indeed admitted that things are not in good shape. Prices of food products are rising. And when you read the State of the Nation's address by the president, he admits that we are in a challenging moment. So for President Mahama to come and tell us that, oh, the MPP government is in denial, they don't want to admit things are hard. No, that's not who we are. Unlike the MPP, when he was the president, and we went through economic challenges, to the extent that we had to go to the IMF for a bailout, for policy credibility. And what that means is that we can no longer manage the indicators of our economy. For that matter, we need a Bretton Woods institution to come in and help us. We haven't done that. Even that, what were some of the policies and programs that he put in place to ensure that the Ghanaian will be cushioned? Another point that he made that I find very, that was his 13 alternatives. And when you read the 13 alternatives, if I should take about 5 of them, I ask myself, is he really living in this country? Okay, especially when he says, oh, the government should, identify and redefine a new course for the country to chart on. I am sorry, Mr. President. We have already done that by introducing the Ghana Obatampa Care, COVID-19 Alleviation and Revitalization Enterprise Support. In that program,
the Ghana Cares Obatampa program is all-encompassing enough, because hold on. I felt that what he was saying, and sometimes this is where I fault or feel aggrieved when it comes to both the NDC and the MPP. I've forgotten who was mentioning recently that, I think it was Professor Mike Aaron Okwe, former Speaker of Parliament, that, for example, when it comes to national development, we ought to detach the political parties and maybe have something that is more forward-looking, regardless of which party. Some of these things that he is mentioning here, I feel you may have your own points to make, but if we're able to incorporate them into our national life, regardless of which party, would they hurt? Would they hurt?
Not at all.
So why must it look as though these 13 are irrelevant? They are not needed. And the Ghana Cares Obatampa program does not address some of the things that he talks about.
No, the things that he mentioned here. He's saying that we need a new course. And I'm saying that is double standard. That's hypocrisy, because you can critique what we already implemented and say, okay, it is not good enough. You have to do A, B, and C. But this is a case where he's telling us, you haven't done anything, so do something. And
is that what he's saying?
That's the implication that I got. That is the idea that I got from what he said. You are asking me to.
Is it possible for anybody? It's not possible even for the worst governments or regimes in the world, even military regimes, to do nothing. So sometimes when some of you come and say the accusation is, it's not possible for anybody to not do anything.
That's the impression he created.
But just to wrap with you before I go to Elikem, because I also want to say, I just want a quick. No, we're taking it step by step. Okay. But I just wanted to run this by you. You're saying that he's being hypocritical and all of that, but look at the context. You referenced what he said at Harvard.
Okay.
In the same breath, he says that you are mismanaging things. But let's take the example of other countries, okay? Because you must look at this in context. COVID has hit every country in the world. The Russo-Ukrainian war, same. Other countries were performing better than others. But even in the midst of all of this, even when you look at our West African sub-region, when it comes to debt to GDP ratios, when it comes to economic performance, when it comes to businesses being impacted, when it comes to currency issues, we are not doing well. In fact, we currently have one of the highest debt to GDP ratios in the sub-region and even beyond. We have the worst performing currency on the continent of Africa. I could go on and on. So my question then to you very briefly is, all these countries are facing the dynamics, but we are performing much worse than others. When you look at fuel, let me just sneak in this bit. Sierra Leone. I have friends in Sierra Leone who tell me that within the last 4 years, the pricing windows have increased by about once every year, even in the midst of COVID-19, in the midst of what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. Here we are in Ghana. How much has fuel, gone up? In fact, fuel prices, petroleum and diesel, are set to go up again. So, in the midst of all of this,
first of all,
over to you.
First of all, when you are having this discussion and debate, you need to respectfully situate it in the right spectrum and context.
Which is
you have to look at what were the exact mitigating factors and policies each country took to ensure that it will contain the virus. Okay, did we do exactly what the other countries did? You look at the nature of the economy. We are an import-driven economy. We import almost everything. And when you import almost everything and you have a global disruption in supply, definitely it's going to affect your economy. When you have about 80% of your economy being informal, and for 2 weeks you tell them not to go to work, it will affect your economy. When you have a situation where the tourism...
Your decision, right? We have people who are supposed to take decisions for the country. When you make the decision, so you bear the consequences.
Exactly. Right? So we haven't run away from the fact that we are, feeling the brunt of what we implemented. And the president said it, that we know how to bring the economy back to life. What we don't know how to do is to bring people back to life. And so by saying that, he admitted that the economy will be dead at some point because of the things that we were doing. And clearly, yes, some of the indicators, the macroeconomic indicators, doesn't look so great. But we have made some progress. For example, we are now doing about 5.4% of GDP growth. That is far better than even when they were leaving office in 2016, when we didn't have a global pandemic. So the point really is this. And we in the NPP admit that we are going through challenges. The president admits that Ghanaians are suffering. The vice president admits. The finance minister admits. And they prefer solutions, and we've given directives and policies to ensure that at the end of the day, we will make progress. What I want to assure the good people of this country is that we have a president and a government that is extremely sensitive to the plight of the ordinary Ghanaian.
It's interesting you say this. I have to move on to Elikem, but you say in one breath you're saying they are sensitive, and you say they admit that Ghanaians are suffering. Do you remember Dr. Baumia when he was nurses are? Would you like to repeat? Students are suffering. Asamesi suffering. Suffering is not what you promised. And John Dramani Mahama says it in the bid that you're being hypocritical. What you promised and what you're delivering are not the same.
That's the challenge that I have. We are suffering as a result of a global pandemic.
Okay. All right. Let's hold it right there. Let me bring in Elikem Kotoko. You've listened for a while. I also want your take, first of all, your brief reflection on yesterday's address, Ghana at a crossroads. How well do you relate to this? The points that were made by the former president, how topical were they for you? And then we'll get into some of the issues that Amael has looked at.
Brother. On that score, permit me the latitude to say good morning to one fine gentleman who made yesterday's program look stellar, and that is Stan Dube. I was listening to my brother, and I just found three things present here. Either the true definition of hypocrisy, ignorance, or insensitivity to the plight of the Ghanaian watching you and I today. That you could not tell us what exactly President Mahama said that contradicted anything he said in the past. You even went ahead to talk about how he made some speeches at Harvard. He is telling you that, yes, the pandemic has brought hardship. It has brought hardship because you have mismanaged. It has brought hardship because over 34 billion you have refused to account to the Ghanaian people. It has brought hardship because the president, sorry, but like a headless chicken, in the midst of this pandemic.
Please.
No.
Please, Elikem.
See, I am fully responsible.
No, hold on. Let me just say this. Ground rules on this show. Let's try to be as decorous as possible. And please, no insinuations. Don't cast aspersions at anybody.
The president, as insensitive as
would you like to withdraw that?
Yes, okay.
Headless chicken, no, not appropriate.
I've withdrawn that.
Right.
The president, in that insensitive manner, was globetrotting all over, even during the pandemic. Flying in those luxurious jets. How much did he bring us apart from debt? And then today you want to look Ghanaians in the face and say you are sensitive, you appreciate. And this is the height of their recklessness. A regime that is not ready to take responsibility for anything except shake it off to everybody. You want to blame Russia for the fuel prices? How much is the cedi to the dollar? That is the major reason why we are suffering. The cedi has become very porous. The cedi has become very important. If the cedi were about, let's say, 5 cedis to the dollar or 6 cedis to the dollar, how much do you think if you had converted the rate, it would have actually put a liter of petrol? So don't think that Ghanaians looking at you are just that dumb that you can throw words about and say that, oh, we have even done better. Look, you are still even in the midst of this mess complaining and comparing yourself. Isn't it mediocrity at this point in time, considering the numerous promises you made to Ghanaians, to now be telling yourself here that you are comparing yourself to the one you called incompetent? Is the incompetence now the standard for you? That can be nothing else but shallowness. I'm sorry. That is just shallowness, and it's insensitivity towards the Ghanaian watching you. That you want to tell me today that an economy that you told us was very robust, you shut down for 2 weeks, and that has actually crumpled everything. Was Ghana the only country that actually shut down? And you rightly asked it. Sierra Leone and the other countries, did they not suffer the same pandemic? So what has brought us here? We have a regime that has done nothing but establish corruption as an institution at the seat of government. The greater pandemic we are faced with today is this regime headed by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the economic management team, who has reduced himself to an economics management teacher. It is no surprise that President Mahama yesterday gave a true definition of who he is. Somebody who has fallen from his ivory tower as a self-styled economic messiah, now reduced to a poster boy. I call him a senior presidential staffer at the presidency. That is what he is doing now.
He is the vice president.
The vice president has now become...
and head of the economic management.
You saw his last speech where within 2 hours he was sweating profusely as though he was engaged in...
Why, is sweating a crime now?
It is not a crime, but when the vice president has to be struggling to deliver speeches that he used to do freely without even sweating, then what changed? We should ask ourselves. The question is, what did President Mahama say yesterday that was not true? To any Ghanaian watching us, what did President Mahama say yesterday that wasn't true? So what exactly is it that President Mahama is hypocritical? Is it just by choice of use of words that you always think that you are smarter than the Ghanaian who listen or watch or who knows the hardship we are going through today? He was even telling himself that he could not even afford rice to come and give to his Muslim friends. That is how dire the situation has become. Because
I don't think technically that's what he said.
We are even talking to them because they are in government and suffering but cannot say it.
Right.
So we are becoming...
Let me just ask you though, I always find it interesting when these dynamics come up. When you look at the management of the economy, NDC through to NPP, you would realize that when it comes to debt to GDP, neither of you has been really good in terms of managing the economy. Our debt levels, of course, some are more than others. But I feel that when it comes to the management of the economy, you've all had your woes, your problems. We lived through doomsday for a while in this country. We saw the impact.
Yes.
So you also cannot paint a picture as though you were perfect, economically speaking. There's no such system. Or that you were so much better and that we are so much worse now. Is that what you're trying to say?
That is not what I'm trying to say at all. In the first place, even at the mention of doomsday, we all need to even appreciate the fact that it was a long inherited challenge because governments had come and not made any provision for our energy demands or our energy needs.
But that's why we voted government, and you had to take that.
So somebody had to bite the bullet. And that is why even today, when you hear people who are academics or who are experts, supposed experts within their own regime trying to say that we have excess power and all of this, you ask yourself where from this crap? In the first place, what's the energy penetration in Ghana? There are people who still don't even have electricity. And you are telling Ghanaians that we have excess power that we don't need? Have we achieved 100% penetration in Ghana with the energy sector? And so you ask yourself why these people think they are a special breed. And anytime they are pushed to the wall, then they now tell you, like my brother said himself, we need to put our discussion in a perspective, in a certain context. The reason why even if the National Security Minister tells the judges that there's perceived notion there that they are compromised or what have you, they will now come back and tell you and I again that he was taken out of context. Which school did they go to that they learned which language, whenever they speak the same English, it is different for our interpretation and they have to come back again and do that kind of damage control. Let me tell you, like you said, President John Mahama never stood anywhere and actually said he was perfect. In fact, he always even admits his faults. He also always will tell you that, for instance, we are not against taxation, but we would not want to put up flowery words to make it look so pleasant to people as though we are the ones with the magic wand. We are the Messiah, only to realize that you are actually the mess. So what is really, look, when you take this current regime, why has the president not openly even admitted that we are in the woods? But using words, and they have to say that the fact that the president said this meant that, well, fine, we've agreed. But if it was something else again and we needed to interpret it, then they would tell us you've taken him out of context. And so I didn't want to respond to a lot of the things he said. President Mahama said that, for instance, what a time to introduce e-levy, like on May Day, to slap workers with that. And it is true. If all things being equal, is it even May Day you should be doing that? At least have an appreciation for wisdom to know that timing is even key in whatever you do.
Are you saying that was an unwise...
That was an unwise...
Imprudent
That was an unwise decision to make. A very unwise one. It is why it is not surprising also that he mentioned.
But the e-levy had been delayed since what? November, December last year.
Yes.
And your own party had sort of heckled, the process in Parliament up to the point. I mean, it had to happen at some point, right?
At the point, you could still say you introduced it a day or 2 or 3 or in the middle of May. Don't forget, that is why the president has put himself out as somebody who is not only irresponsible, but very insensitive. One of my reasons is this. Even in the last election, where he was the greatest beneficiary of the outcome of the results, 8 civilians, 8 citizens died out of that. Has he been able to utter a word? That is the pride and the arrogance of a leader that we have found today. Has he been able to find reason to just sit down and say, fellow Ghanaians, in the last elections, we lost 8 lives. That should not be. As a human rights activist, I detest that and will do everything to ensure that we bring those who did that to. No, he has not even heard us say that.
Okay. Elikem, let's look at a crucial point, yes. and I want to put it bluntly to you, even as we get into the e-levy. So is the NDC saying, yes. and we have history, that is why I'm asking this question, is the NDC saying that should you, if, conditional, you assume the reins of government in 2025, will say bye-bye to the e-levy yamutu. Is that what you are saying? Because in this same country, like I was mentioning in the news review, VAT, lower VAT, kumi preko, siemi preko, viemi preko. And then we saw a government come into power and then increase it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Is that your final answer for 3 points, that you take away the e-levy?
Thank you for that. Touch wood. See, it is one of the reasons why the NDC and the minority in Parliament would resist any attempt to want to collateralize the e-levy. Because if we allow them to collateralize, then it becomes difficult for you to even want to take it off. But we will do everything to resist that. Virtually everything has been collateralized. I mean, talk about the ESLA, talk about even Get Fund. And they have already given all indications that the 6 billion that they were expecting, which has actually shot down to 4.5, and by the time the year ends, will maybe shoot down to probably 2 or 2.5 billion, is aimed at using that to collateralize so that they can now go in for more. This is a regime that is only interested in borrowing. And President Mahama was actually spot on. He's not the only first person to have said that. If you recall, our General Secretary, General Johnson Asiedu John, also made saying that, look, we would make sure that we take it out. Because that is untold hardship being brought onto the people. And it is the reason for which we would ensure.
Untold hardship that is going to bring some, now 4 to 5 billion into government's kitty. 4 to 5 billion that should you come into government, you would also need.
Good. Auditor General made us know that this regime has even invested close to 12.4 billion, which is twice the amount that they are actually requesting for through e-levy. As we speak, the president looks on. The finance minister is very mute over a decision by a road minister to call for cessation of collection of road tolls. What that means is that even if vehicles from other countries, from Cote d'Ivoire, from Burkina Faso, Niger, Togo, are driving on our roads, they don't pay a dime for the destruction they are causing to our roads. But the president comes to you and I and say, pay road levy, pay e-levy, so I'll use that to go and fix the road. What kind of insanity is this? That is just what it is. Ask yourself, does it make sense to even a KG people watching the road minister, the finance minister, and the president accepting that because he is a family relation to the president, nobody is able to talk about it. So he has taken a unilateral decision to call for cessation of collection of road tolls. As we speak, we are losing close to 8 million every month. That is 80 million every year. So there are a lot of ways that you can find avenues to rake in more. When you are investing in corruption, what do you expect? It has become a pandemic rather than even a COVID-19.
Point made. Kofi?
Sir.
I'll start from where, you can call me Ben. I'll start from where he left off, Elikem left off. And indeed, some of us have struggled to contemplate, especially in our economic situation, why you're losing over 200,000 cedis a day because you've taken away the road tolls. And we talk about the e-levy. The NDC, John Dramani Mahama says, and I'm quoting him here, we in the NDC do not oppose taxation as a principle. We will not be pretentious and couch fanciful slogans to condemn the principle of taxation like the MPP did in the past. We are, however, implacably opposed to distortionary and burdensome taxes like the e-levy that only force Ghanaians to endure more suffering. I'll tell you this, as far as our surveys here are concerned and in our interactions with people, they have evinced that people could have done without the e-levy. In some polls we have conducted, or some engagements in the Ashanti region, 9 out of 10 people have said, we don't want the e-levy. But we have it today, okay? I'll reference what Vice President Bawumia said in the past when he was asked about electronic taxation. He said, never that. It's not something that we should look at. Today we find ourselves there. Can you disagree with former President Mahama on this point when he says that he is not against taxation as a principle, but where we find ourselves, we should never have been here?
Yeah, it's true, because of a lot of factors that had come into play and still continue to be in play. In fact, I have some statements, and a video for that matter, where the former president was admitting that when you have outliers, especially from other countries, it can have a telling effect on your economy. He made that statement in 2012. He admitted same in 2014, and even in 2016, his State of the Nations address, he admitted that because of the economies that were not so good in China, it has its effect on the Ghana economy. So when you have these situations where the whole world is struggling to find its feet, there's a need for you to do something differently and audaciously. If we have other means to raise revenue, trust me, we would have done it. But at this point, this is what we had to do to ensure that at the end of the day, we don't continue go borrowing. Did you get it? It's very unfortunate tax, but it is extremely needed and necessary because we needed to augment certain developmental projects that are ongoing. Also to ensure that at the end of the day, it will be able to provide more jobs for the youth. We are complaining about unemployment among the youth, and we have an agenda to ensure that this money will go into addressing the youth unemployment. But specifically on the issue of the former president making that declaration, on what locus did he make that statement? Why did he make that statement? It's not in his place to make that statement.
Why not?
Who is he in the NDC now? Why would he declare such a bold thing, like when the next NDC government? Who is he now? I'm asking, who is he now to make that statement? I don't think it was in his place to make that statement.
He is a former president. He is the former flag bearer of the party in the immediate past election.
So why would you say the next NDC government? Well, no.
Hold on. Just hold on. I'm just saying that at this point we could have a brief interjection. Yes. I don't want to do it because I don't know what they are thinking. But why do you think
President Mahama is a former president and consults with the Council of Elders and the NDC at large, and that is a decision by the NDC which has been communicated to you.
But if
that is just the truth.
Thank you. But if the National Council makes a decision, again, I am asking the question: who is the mouthpiece of the NDC?
You heard the general.
Hold on. Again, that's not the point.
Okay,
but I am also making the point that the NDC and John Dramani Mahama, God forbid, and I perish the thought, becomes the president, wouldn't have what it means to repeal this tax.
They wouldn't have what it takes to repeal the tax.
No, they don't even have the credibility. I am daring you. Mention just one.
I thought you would say they wouldn't have the numbers, assuming they did in Parliament.
They can't even do it.
They can't do it.
They don't even have the credibility to do it. I am challenging Elikem and maybe you to name just one tax.
I'm not part of it.
Just one tax.
Right.
The NDC abolished when they came to government. Just one of them. Abolished. I'm not talking about reduction or reviewing it or reforming it. Abolished completely. But I can mention 15 taxes we either abolished or reduced in this country.
But Kofi, it's interesting you make the point. No. I am interjecting. You abolished some of them, some of those taxes you called nuisance taxes.
True.
And then you also introduced a raft of others. What would you call that?
No, I am making a specific statement.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the credibility of a political party and an individual. If it had taken the NPP to say, when we come to government, we will repeal or abolish this tax, then you can go home and sleep. But with the NDC, you cannot, because they don't have it. They have never done it before. We have done it before. I am saying that You cannot come to government and see 7 billion revenue every year and tell me you repeal it. First of all, does it even have the wherewithal to navigate us through our challenges?
But speaking of the locus that you're talking about, the NDC never made promises about abolishing taxes. You did. They didn't.
See,
so we can simply say that you honored your promise, though you hit us with other taxes.
I am saying that they haven't even done it, whether they are promised or not.
So now that there is a promise, which they have not made in the past, now that there is a promise, there is no justification for you to say they've been dishonest because they've never made that.
We are talking about e-levy.
Promise to Ghanaians.
We are talking about e-levy because of 3 factors that have impacted the economy so badly. And out of these 3 factors, 2 of the major were as a result of the mess we inherited from the NDC. And yesterday, I was glad that the former president admitted that indeed we created that mess. When you go to the financial sector bailout excuse that he said we gave, he said it was the NDC government that conducted the asset quality review which determined that the banks in question were in distress. So he clearly admitted.
But that has never been in question. No, when you make a point, I have to okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So here, he admits that the 25 billion, which could have been used for some other things, okay, could have been avoided if he had managed the banking sector or the financial sector well.
So
he admits here clearly.
The point I was trying to make was that they say that we didn't even need to spend the 25 billion, which has been ballooning from 9 billion to this billion to 17 to 20 to 21 to 24 and all of that. He says, yes, I agree with you. We've spent this amount of money, but we didn't have to go there. That was not going to be our approach in dealing with the problems that I agree that the banks had. That is what he's saying.
But I find that's part of the hypocrisy. First of all, indeed, he built some of the banks out. He did. And the money he gave to you should go and read the asset quality review. And the money he gave to the banks ended up spending the money. So that solution that he was preferring or he preferred then did not even work. To the extent that when you read paragraph, page 20 of the last State of the Nation's address by himself, he admitted that the policy that we have implemented, they are not working. That is why we have to do something different and dramatic and drastic. And of course, he was talking about the fact that some people will lose their jobs and some, people locally, they have lost their businesses and all of that. But how about the 1.2 million Ghanaians? How about the 4.5 million depositors who could have lost their money as a result of this incompetence? So clearly for me, again, I want to make the point that the NDC clearly is not the alternative. Yesterday, listening to him and the 13 points that he raised, and all the 13 points have been addressed by the NPP administration, and we are making steady progress. I know we are in challenging moments. I know things are tough. I know Ghanaians are angry. I know they are anxious. We understand that. I used to buy cocoa for 1 cedi with sugar. Now I have to buy it for 1 cedi, 50 pesos. I will buy the kose and it used to be that big. Now it has shrunk. I used to fill my tank with such amount of money. Now I'm buying it more. Things are hard. We are in difficult situation. But I'm making the humble appeal that it would take the new patriotic party to be able to take us through these processes and to ensure that we go back to our glorious days.
All right.
The NDC
quick questions before I move on to Elikem. I think the thrust of what you're saying is made, but I just want to find out for you. You walk the corridors of power, and as a communications member, you hear things. If things become better for our country economically, though when you look at the global picture, the projections by the IMF and the World Bank, it's even projected now that our debt to GDP is around 84% that it will get to about 88% moving on to 2024, 2025 before it recedes to about 87%. So, and people have told us, watchers of the economy, that next year could be even worse than this year. So let's put all of that aside. If things were to become better, much better economically speaking, let's say the cedi appreciates against foreign currencies and all of that, would the NPP consider doing away with the e-levy?
I don't think I have the authority to.
That's why I was asking. You walk the corridors of power.
You see, You see,
but is this something you would want to see if things were to become that much better?
No.
You wouldn't want to see the e-levy taken off?
I think that we are demanding more as a people, and rightly so. And when we are demanding for more, it will require money to do that. So if the money will be used for its intended purpose, why not? We should go ahead and continue to take taxes from the e-levy to ensure that we truly develop this country, that we create more jobs for the youth, and create more opportunities for every Ghanaian, and to make sure the economy is on stable grounds, and to see more. When I go through my area where I live, I see a lot of road infrastructure, and it makes me happy. Hitherto, a year or two ago, it was horrible. I'm talking about the Ashalebotwe Manjo area there, and now it's being, developed. And I think many more are being done in the rural areas, and they are happy about it. We can only be happy when we contribute our quota to the national development and to the kitty. And I believe that as long as we use the money for its intended purpose, it should remain in. Very
quick one. Elikem, I'll come to you. Just bear with me. I just have to sneak in this bit. So, when it comes to COVID-19 spending, John Dramani Mahama has time and again, called for more accountability. The claim is that we've accrued some $34 billion when you look at all the sources, from the IMF to the World Bank to this to that, and even locally generated funds. Why is the MPP so averse to coming out and saying, and I admit, in some instances you have said that we've expended this, expended that, and PPE and all of that, but why are you so averse to coming out with a full-scale audit? This is where all the COVID-19 money, the 33 billion plus, has gone into. Why is that such a problem?
I think it's a populist statement and a populist question and a rhetoric. We have institutions in this country that are mandated to do auditing in such.
Why are they not? I mean, are you going to refer to the Auditor Generals and all of that? I mean, as a government, as an administration, you are accountable to the people. You must be transparent.
We are being accountable. We have the Public Account Committee that is chaired by the opposition. We have the Auditor General that is independent. We have other institutions.
If you tell me, for example, the 50-something million that you spend feeding people in COVID-19, what is the breakdown? How do I know what that went into? I mean, there are so many things, PPE and all of that. Which institution, who got what?
When you read the budget, the appendices, all these expenditures are there. Read the appendices.
All right.
Unless you have a problem with the appendices,
all right.
They are all there.
If that is your final answer, let me move on to it.
I want to say two things first. You see, President Mahama said it, that we are not against taxation. And I was just surprised listening to my brother that we should mention one tax that we abolish. Is it mandatory that you abolish tax?
I'm talking about your credibility.
No, is it mandatory? I'm sorry, but what kind of basic economics is this? That when a government is coming, you must promise the people that I abolish tax. Is that what went into the thinking? Is that what Dr. Baumia taught
We're
you
even
guys?
taxing condoms.
Granted, it is true.
Granted, it's true.
I am saying, granted, it is true. We didn't tell the people we won't do this. So where from this? I'm sorry, but the. President Mahama said, and I quote, "I do not claim perfection. I am human, but I will not engage in empty promises, sloganeering, convenient lies, and grand deception to win power. I will always speak the truth." And he has stayed true to that.
Really?
He has stayed true to that. That he doesn't think that he must go and be speaking some funny accent to look like I am the one with the loudest voice and I can be heard. You were talking about the financial sector cleanup and all that. Look at what happened. Now you were able to say that President Mahama is admitting that he caused the mess. Should I now also tell you that, okay, so you take things out of a certain context, and that's why I always ask, which special school did you go that we did not attend? That gives you, which is the reason why when even one says we'll review, to the MPP it means cancellation. But when they say review, it means something else. Look, you look at President Mahama made it clear that looking at the financial sector cleanup, there was job that ought to have been done. And the work that ought to be done was to lend some support to the financial services or the sector. What did you actually do? You said you are coming to clean up. You have cleaned up, and today what are we seeing? What is the status of the financial sector till date? Then they will tell you, oh, now interest rates or banking loans. Who is even going to the bank to take loans in today anyways? Where is the money? The money exists in the books. It doesn't exist in cash. So stop massaging figures and quoting things. When the IMF, and you bastardizing the IMF, when they gave you the 1 billion, why didn't you say no to them? The World Bank indicated even on their website, times back, that you failed to account for money that were given to you. Is that not embarrassing enough? And what else is there again that is called credibility, that this regime must actually be talking of that fiber? You have none. And you think that at all times you are blaming everybody. He sat here close to 1 hour. He has not been able to own up that we took this decision that was wrong. And I was surprised to hear here as a youth to say that even when things get better, e-levy should remain. So you see, then why again were you saying that we should mention one tax that we decided we will abolish? So why were you abolishing some anyways? But you are so hypocritical enough to say that even when things get better, e-levy should still remain. Do you have any moral sensitivity towards the people watching you who are going through hardship for actually being double taxed for their own money they have put in their electronic wallet? If they want to even compromise on the fact that you have mismanaged, just as the World Bank has indicated, that high debt and fiscal indiscipline is what has brought us here, why would you actually even say that to the people? I say, it is one good thing being able to speak well and say all manner of niceties. It is what has landed us where we are. Because President Mahama will not allow himself to only be polished as the best product and all of that. He's always said that he doesn't claim perfection. But you want President Nana to be polished and branded so well. You see, you can try to sell ice even to the Eskimo. But in the end, we'll see what that product will be like. Look, everybody is now saying it. Even you have former judges, almost every week somebody comes out to say President Nana is a disaster. He has failed. He has made promises. And Ghanaians have always asked you these questions. You promised one district, one factory with a graph showing where Adenta will have their factory, showing where Medina will have their factory. Today we ask you, and you point to Ghana Rubber Estate Limited that was established in 1985, that because you gave them support, it means that it's now part of one district, one factory. You promised them 1 million per constituency. You promised them 1 village, 1 dam. The promises were just flowery and were flowing. Today, as you are stuck, you are blaming everything irresponsibly on Russia, Ukraine, on COVID-19, as though Ghana was the only country that suffered the pandemic. The greater pandemic we are suffering today is the regime that has established corruption as a thriving enterprise in the seat of government, which is worrying. Tell us who the president has prosecuted so far over matters that relate to corruption. We only hear they are starting then the Ghana way, a very foolish case. Then it goes. Then another
the
issue.
National Communication Authority, the board members and the former CEO, 3 of them that were in prison.
And you are proud that of all the corruption.
You just said who?
Yes.
And I'm giving
because I want to bring you out to answer me. Let me tell you. And you are so proud to say that of all the numerous scandals and the issues that surround this government.
Done anything.
So you are proud that is what you have done.
No, I'm just correcting you.
To the extent
so
that
next time,
to the extent that the presidency has sunk so low that people, yes, the presidency has sunk so low that you even have a special prosecutor tell you that he's the mother serpent of corruption. Never in the history of any country that a presidency or the president is described in such manner. It's disgusting. Let us face
the same person your party described as uncontrollable.
So do you now want to listen to us?
Right.
I will tolerate that.
Right. Just hold for me. We want to, also look at the perspectives from you, the viewers, and what you've been sharing with us on social media and beyond. Should time suffice, we would also activate the phone lines on this matter. But Bernice Abubedu Lanza is here in the studio as well. Hi, Bernice.
Hi.
There you are.
Hi.
All right. So what are people saying on this matter?
A lot of comments on this. And let me just scroll down so you see what people are commenting. And this is the story on myjoyonline.com. Next NDC government will repeal e-levy act, and that's what you are just discussing with your guests. David says no government will cancel or repeal completely the sources of revenue for a nation. E-levy is no exception of revenue for Ghana and politicians. Stephen says, well, please give us a break here, but he doesn't use those exact words. We were in this country when you were taxing condoms, he says. Dominic Eduse says, but you people once upon a time tax cutlasses and condoms, or you still think Ghanaians have short memory? Agbenyaga says, Abugri, he's got so many better things to offer than an industry of taxing poor people's pockets, and says this is a clear indication that he's got nothing better to offer Ghanaians. So that response was to Abugri. Eric Amankwa says, the way this man is craving for power, where he claims with lies, I fear it will be worse in Ghana. George Ahim says, what about one-time premium of health insurance you promised us in 2008? What do you take us for, Mr. Short Memory, he says. And Kweku Agboche says, Ghanaians do not have short memories. Okay, so if you get onto our Facebook page, we have posted short clips of former President Mahama's speech, and this particular one is on education, where he talks about basic schools not having enough textbooks. But we have more on the e-levy. Let me just quickly scroll down. Sorry, and we'll get more on that. Okay.
So that's even an interesting bit that you just scrolled by, where he talks about the economy or the country being on the verge of bankruptcy. But I guess those are some of the other videos that we have on the platform. You can check out all of them on Facebook. Okay, so this particular one has 183 comments still on the e-levy, and people are telling us what they think of former President Mahama's declaration that the next NDC government, if given the opportunity, will repeal the e-levy. It says, "Let no Ghanaian be fooled." This is Abu Lansani by this PR gimmick. Okay, he's making political talk just to garner votes. We've seen several of these from the NDCs, and no Ghanaian should be deceived. There are 9 replies to that. Let me just quickly take that. Okay. Your work is hard. Why do you want to sympathize, or who do you want to sympathize with you? If all economies are suffering shocks, are their citizens spared? Why should taxing people in economic turmoil amidst high inflation, high fuel prices, high cost? So he goes on to list a couple of things people are suffering. Nicholas Buedi says, when nakedness promises to give you clothes, ask his name. I think the question we should be asking should be, what happened to the communication service tax? Okay, so he lists a number of tax, and he's asking if the NDC repealed those or rather increased. And he says, why did JM oversee the introduction of 26 killer nuisance taxes, including condom tax, tax on cutlasses, kaya tax, 17.5% tax on banking transactions, etc., which Nanado came to either repeal or drastically reduce? Was JM being insensitive by then when those nuisance taxes were introduced, even in the dark days of Doomsaw? He says, credibility matters, you know. Alexis Doyen says, sounds sweet to the ear that wants to hear it. If by chance this tax rakes in just 2 billion per in a year, it will be insane to scrap it for a broke economy. All the same, when you hear party for soldiers start saying President Mahama's words have been taken out of context, just know that you've been scammed and there will be no scrapping. Cassius Man says, what didn't they say about the national health insurance? They promised us one-time registration, but when we voted for them, did they honor that promise? What do they, especially their man who calls himself JDM, take Ghanaians for? We cannot be deceived by JDM again. Let me ask, he once said politics is about mixing truth with lies to get votes from the electorate. So this one, he is saying, where can I place it, under lies or truth? Okay, and let me just do this last one. Suleiman says, the only party that speaks the truth, even if it will affect them, Ghanaians will testify before 2016 elections. JDM spoke the bitter truth concerning free education, Alawa and scam NAPCO before 2020 elections. So, Benjamin, those are a couple of views on our Facebook page. 183 of them, actually. We definitely cannot read them all, but these are just a few of what you've been sharing with us about the former president's statement about the e-levy. So we'll bring you more comments. Just go back to Benjamin to wrap it up with his guests. All right, so I'll be doing that right here in the studio. And of course, after 9 o'clock, we'll be taking more of your comments on this. And the second bit, we'll be looking at COVID-19 and why those in the Bono East do not want to take the vaccines. But the live feed, I'm going to take some of just 2 or 3 of the comments that are there. And this one says, the headquarters of the COVID and the Ukraine war is in Ghana. You're being sarcastic. You're being sarcastic. This one says, and there are some interesting ones I saw. I just want to take a look at them. Someone was talking about the 17 taxes that were taken off or abolished. So the person was basically saying, and I just want to get the exact, yes, Chibi Kelvin James says, the 17 taxes that were abolished were worse than the e-levy. We were paying 17% on bank transactions. Make we think. So the person is saying the MPP did well by abolishing all of those taxes. But let's conclude this conversation, gentlemen. I want us to take a bit of a look at what President Mahama and the NDC propose in those 13 points at the end of this entire presentation. He says those directly responsible for the economic crisis must bear responsibility, and it is inconceivable that the Minister of Finance remains at post. So point one. It goes without saying that the economic management team has failed, and then he goes on to talk about, and I'm just paraphrasing because they are lengthy, I can't take all of them. He says, having supervised the worst public debt buildup, the worst budget deficit, the worst debt to GDP ratio, the worst credit ratings and downgrades, the worst performing currency in the world, the worst crisis of confidence in our economy, the highest fuel prices ever rising in inflation and unprecedented hardship. It goes on, and that's why the economic management team, or the EMT, must step in. He says the president must, as a matter of urgency, reshuffle his cabinet. He says there must be a clear and measurable reduction in government expenditure. And we always hear about the number of ministers we have and how we could reduce them. In other points, he says government must limit borrowing significantly. He says government must also take immediate steps to restore credibility to the management of the economy. And just to wrap, he also says that it is time for us to change the structure of our economy by allowing Ghanaians to achieve the popular General Ignatius Kutu Echampo mantra of capturing the commanding heights of our economy. And the final point, we must leverage our comparative advantage in agriculture by investing in agribusiness to complete the agriculture value chain in respect of marketing and processing of our agricultural products. I want you gentlemen, in some 2 minutes maximum, or a minute and a half, encapsulate your ideas into how you genuinely feel about these 13 points, relevant or otherwise. I'll start with you.
The 13 point, I started my...
yeah, you did. You made mention of them at the start.
And I think in summary, what he is proposing, they've been done already, and we continue to do it, except that it will take some time to kick in. He talks about the agribusiness. That is why we introduced the one district, one factory, to ensure that at the end of the day, we have factories in Ghana that will take advantage of the raw materials produced by our farmers. He was trying to poo-poo it. I have a list here, you don't have time. I have about over 100 factories that are operational. Do you get it? And again, the point about making sure we reduce...
Let me ask you an interesting question. Can you name five? No. I'll give you... Can you name 5 of those factories without looking on your phone? Any 5 factories that, off the top of your head, you can say, I know where these factories are?
When you go to Central Region, just when you are going, you have a gas cylinder factory right there. And then you have Casa de Europa.
You say just when you're going where?
To
where
Western Region, I think when you pass...
Central or Western?
Central. When you pass Winneba. And around that same place, we have the Jetro, some juice factory also there. That's 2. We have the Akunfi juice factory. I'm talking about just Central Region. And then when you go to Pram Pram in the Eastern Region, we have B5, which have been revamped.
Pram Pram.
Yeah, Pram Pram.
Okay.
Pram Pram.
But B5 has always been with us. I've worked in the Pram Pram enclave.
I know B5. My brother works there.
Right.
He's been working there since 2015.
Right.
But you see, the one district...
So what exactly have you done with B5?
Hold on. We are talking about one district, one factory as a policy.
Right.
And this is what the policy means. We will help establish factories with the private sector. Then when we came to government, we went to Parliament and told Parliament, there are certain companies that need revival and need support. So when we talk of the one district, one factory, that's exactly what it means. So again, when you talk about a reduction in government expenditure, we have done so. We reduced government expenditure by 30%, another additional by 10%. The finance minister came to announce some of the spending reduction that will occur. Then the last point I would want to make, and I want to stress, this whole political ecosystem is about credibility.
Right.
Did you read what your viewers were saying? They don't have belief and trust in the former president to repeal the e-levy. And when I said that they don't have what it takes to cancel or repeal or abolish any tax, he said, oh, but we have never promised to reduce or abolish any tax. For that matter, you can come here and at least trying to attack me. But in 2008, when we introduced the communication service tax to ensure that we will use it to pay the National Youth Employment people, John Dramani Mahama, then a member of parliament, said, no, you are taxing them too much. It was not needed. We will abolish it when we come to power. He was a vice president. He never did it. Then in 2013, he introduced the Communication Service Tax Amendment Bill which increased it to about 6%. So Elikem, this is the fact.
All right. Before Elikem comes in, Nyaglo Patrick says, Ben, the 17 taxes mentioned by the MPP are not same as the e-levy because they were not directly touching the poor Ghanaian. These taxes were insignificant to the plight of Ghanaians. Anyway, you have your 2.5 minutes because I gave him a
President
bit of...
Mahama in his submission made it clear that there will be the need for us to consider as a country a
Right.
24-hour 3-shift system that would make the economy be running around
8 hours each.
8 hours each, 24/7. That's very beautiful. That is what we need because we need to expand to create space that can soak in the numerous teeming youth that remain unemployed out there. He also talked about, look, the need that Dr. Bawumia has exhausted his usefulness. He has just been reduced to a poster boy there. It's embarrassing that he's not respected in the government from the look of things. If you listen
I love him. I love him.
You are everybody, even the wife loves him. So please, you can't love him.
He's a wonderful gentleman.
So don't make it look like you love him more than the wife. And she made us believe that and she made us even believe that her husband is the economic whiz kid. Until date, she will probably believe in that myopia. So that's not surprising. Now, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been a disaster. He has failed and more projects himself as an economics management teacher than economics management team head. And there's a need for him to actually eat the humble pie. The likes of Ken Ofori-Atta, who are only aiming at promoting their personal businesses, for which reason they know that they will be beneficiaries out of every business transaction that they encounter on behalf of government, will continue borrowing because he wants to be a greater beneficiary to that. Then President Mahama talked of reshuffle. That seems to be a word that President Nana Addo has never heard before, and probably because he has no other person to turn to. If you are youth and looking at these old folks who are underperforming, and they don't find you worthy to be one of those who even can understudy them and be able to actually take up positions, you should be scared for your life because it is you and I, our future, that they are mortgaging without your involvement. And you are proud that you are continually borrowing us into debt this way, and this is how you actually bring the economy back to life and not bring lives to human beings to life. Well, that is just part of the president's way of copying or plagiarizing speeches that he eventually will not even admit to. Look, in a nutshell, I have always asked, tell me what President Mahama said yesterday. That is not the truth. That is not the fact. That is not worthy of mention that he actually presented a case of a statesman who has Ghana at heart.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I am tempted to say in the blue corner and in the red corner, but we're not in a boxing ring. We're joined by Elikem Kotoko. Do you support Kotoko? You need to change it.
I enjoy watching good football.
You ought to come aboard and support Krobia Kumasi Asante Kotoko.
Charlie, why?
Why? What be your wahala?
I can't support they say make it can support Kotoko.
We support Kotoko.
You guys should come and buy me. So let me hear the
But we beat you the last time.
let me welcome you. So let me hear that.
We'll do this when we take a break.
I know how much you guys
do this properly when we take a break.
Who knows? I'll be the magic one that will cause the change. So
Elikem Kotoko is a member of the NDC's communications team. Kofi Amayao is a member of the MPP's communications team. Do stay with us because up next we're talking about the Bono East region and why people are simply refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccines. What's the situation there? We'll tell you. Bernice Abubeidu Lanza will be on that beat. And later, after 9 o'clock, she'll be back as we look at some of your social media comments and activate the phone lines to take your calls. Do stay. We'll be right back.
Hello there. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. It's now time to talk about COVID-19. Yes, as it stands now, we've got 4 active cases. The virus is still around. Ghana has done quite well with the vaccination drive, but there are still concerns that a lot of people are reluctant to take the vaccine, especially in the Bono East region. The Director of Health there, Dr. Fred Adomako-Mensah, has had reason to complain, and the reluctance is basically due to all these myths about taking the vaccine and a lot of people have not taken the vaccine. There are over, the population of the Borno East region is over 1 million, and only about 200,000 people have been vaccinated. And so we are here to have that conversation and look at the repercussions or consequences of this on the well-being of the people in the Borno East region. Well, thanks for your time this morning, Dr. Adomako Mensah. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Good morning.
So first off, let's talk about what you've identified on the ground. We know you've spoken about myths. Sorry, Dr. Adomako Boateng, forgive me for that. Let's talk about the myths that you have identified in terms of specifics. What are the realities on the ground when you step out to speak to the people of the Borno East?
So thank you for giving me this opportunity for us to have this discussion. So I just want to start with a breakdown of what we have done so far, then I will go into that. So if you look at Borno East, the whole population for Borno East is 1,159,000. And for this population, if you are looking at the target population for the vaccine, we are 835,086. So the people who are eligible for the vaccines are 836,086. But then I want us to know how we arrived at this number even to start with. Initially, you recall that those people who were eligible for the vaccines were 18 and more. So in that instant, the eligible population for Borno East then was 663,000. That's where we started with. If you recall, pregnant women were not part, and also people who were less than 18 were not part of this equation. So if we are looking at that target, like 663,000, then obviously everybody in Borno East by now would have gotten at least one dose. And then fast track, we realized that the pregnant women could also receive the vaccines. So we moved from that target of 663,000 to 773,000. And then we are so lucky that Pfizer and other vaccines could also be given to people less than even 15 years. And that's how come we came to this eligible population of 835,000. And then with this number, with the current campaign that we just ended, people who have received at least one dose, we are 46%. And those who are fully vaccinated, we stand at 31.2%. So you see where we are coming from in terms of the denominator that we are using for 663,000 to 883,000. And that seems to be diluting the work that we are doing. So that is where I will lay the point. Now, why are people not receiving? We are now breaking this number down to look at where we are really having a lot of challenges in terms of the age band. Is it less than the 15? Is it 15 to 25? Is it more? I think when I get that, I will come and discuss. We will discuss that. But in terms of the hesitancy, you remember that when we started the campaign for the vaccines, we had a lot of myth and surrounding it. One particular one at Greece was when we actually engaged people. We went to one of the sites where the vaccines were being delivered, and we engaged people there, women, men together. And one of the myths that they were saying, they have heard that if you take the vaccine, you are going to be infertile. Like, you're not, as a woman, you couldn't take seed for 10 years. And within 10 years, you are going to be bald. That is for the women. Then the men also, they said for the men, what is going to happen is that when you take the vaccine, within 3 days, you are going to have what? Erectile dysfunction, that you are not going to be able to engage in sexual intercourse. And the precision by which we came with this, we engaged them and asked them, but the vaccine is not even, we have not given it to people more than 2 years or more than 1 year. How come you're able to come with this information so specific? And then some of them will say, oh, doctor, we the autism. And then we asked them, but why are you here? And they said, Doc, I mean, these are some of the rumors circulating around. In fact, at times we even asked them specifically if they've heard anybody or seen anybody dying from taking the vaccine. And they said, Doc, I don't mind them. These are things that we have heard. So you can see where the information is coming from with the speculations and the fear and the record time by which we were able to develop the vaccine. So these were contributing to some of the myths that people are coming around. And we should know that we always have had people who are against vaccines since time immemorial. And they just wrote on this to come with all. So these were some of the myths that were going out.
Okay.
But the challenge has been the way that we actually discuss this with individuals. It has been like, look, for instance, Joy TV this morning. You know where the discourse has been. Yul Idochi. Look, for the last month, it's been Yul Idochi, Ukraine, and all those.
Yeah, I was just. People have referred to the COVID-19 disease as a media. The media, the world over, shifted its attention to the Russia and Ukraine war. It appears that COVID-19 has just vanished from our midst. There's also the other angle on the relaxation of the protocols. Now, we are not really mandated to wear our masks. So all these things, at this point, with where you are specifically, the Bono, do you foresee an increase in the numbers, or at this point you've thrown your hands in the air because clearly there's very little discussion about COVID-19 at the moment, and the president has also relaxed the protocols?
Thank you. So there is this saying that the cure of the disease should not be worsened. The solution of a problem should not really worsen the problem. And I think as we look at the epidemiology of the disease across board, that will inform maybe some of the decisions that you will have to make. And so at times, decisions and declarations are made based on prevailing circumstances. And the challenge has been the miscommunication and the misinterpretation of some mandates, especially for other people. But for we as health workers, we should make sure that our eyes are on the ball. For example, Guinea is for the past, let's say, 6-7 weeks, you have not gotten, let's say, active cases. The ones you maybe had one. So in that scenario, you see that some of the mandates are legitimate and scientific. Because look, if you don't have anybody to pass on, why are people still in that? So those are the reasons why at times some of these mandates are given. Notwithstanding, we know one of the measured and effective way is what? The vaccines that we are now in there. So how do we really canvass the population so that we will have a way without really threatening them, without really seeing that the risk because of ABCD, but people really should come and understand that the need for us to get the vaccine in the next phase of where we are going. And mind you, if you really look at the disease spectrum, the challenge really has been people who really have the vaccine, who have the virus, they don't fall sick, they are not severe, they don't have critical cases, therefore they are not even taken to the hospital. And these people serve kind of, for want of better words, reservoir and be passing on the virus to more vulnerable people, more than 50, more than 60, and people with comorbid issues. How do we really bring these people on board and they get the vaccines and also protect people who are much at risk and having the severer forms? So these are where anthropologists and social sciences should all come together, and the media. I wish Joy FM every morning, 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you ask people whether they have gone for the vaccines.
All right, Doc. I need to find out this from you. So the Bono East, let's come down to the Bono East because that's where you are. You have vaccinated less than 50% of your target population, yet you are not having infections. It appears the disease is under some form of control. Why then should people take the vaccine? And I'm sure that's the question on a lot of minds.
Okay, so there is a need for us to take vaccine. This morning, I was reading, you know what is happening in South Africa right now, where we have sub-variants of the Omicron, which we call the BA4, BA5. This is not British Airways, by the way. They are sub-variants. And then if you read in the States, New York, they've started recording high cases and hospitalization. And we know this global community. And COVID-19 have been a disease of importation from where affluent countries and more densely populated countries to come. And where Bono is situated, almost every wave that happened in the country, we also bear a brand of it. The first, second, the Delta, and we were deadly hit with the Delta wave. So we kind of are passively receiving when we have the surge. Therefore, and even if you look at the statistics, look at the case fatality rate. I was talking to one of your colleagues. Look, despite the fact that Bono East is not having huge amount of cases like Greater Accra and Ashanti region, the case fatality rate for Bono East is higher than these two regions, where they are more endowed with infrastructure expertise as compared to Bono East. So if you are talking about people who really need the vaccines, then it's the population of Bono East, so that we are protected against any other wave that will come. And mind you, we are not out of the woods yet, and the pandemic is not over. And one case anywhere is one case everywhere. So we at Bono East should prepare and be ready before we have the wave or the surge in the country. Anytime we have the wave in Accra, Kumasi, Central Region, and other places, Bono East also have our share. And so we shouldn't wait for that to happen. And looking at the global trend, we should be prepared. And that is the reason why we should go. And in terms of vaccination and vaccines, the best time to go for the vaccine is when we don't have the disease. And I think the mothers and the husbands, we know, and we take our kids every time for them to have the vaccine. This is the right opportunity for us, those of us who have not gotten the vaccine, to make sure we have it, preparing for the raining and the lean season. This is the time that we have to prepare. So I will say that if there is any time that people should go for the vaccine, it's time. The time is now for Bono East, for us to go. Whilst Greater Accra, Ashanti region, and our big brothers are also having, we also should also go for the vaccines and be prepared when we are challenged with surge and waves.
You mentioned earlier that your target population was at around 800,000 because we had a certain target group, those above 60, children were not involved, pregnant mothers, and even some people extended it to nursing mothers. Is the story still the same? Or pregnant women and children in Ghana? I know elsewhere children are taking the vaccine, but do we still have those exemptions, or all those people are allowed to take the vaccine now?
So one, the pregnant women are now safe. The vaccine won't have any effect on them, won't have any effect on their babies. The babies will not have any abnormality when the mothers go for the vaccines. If you are breastfeeding, a lactating mother, you equally qualify for the vaccine. And then if you are children, if you are less than 15 years, you qualify for the vaccines in the country. Then people with health workers, actually, we are even mandated to take boosters and other risks, risk population, and then security. are also able to have their boosters. So those who qualify for the vaccines have not changed. We are really having challenges with those that we have brought on board. For example, we are still having challenges with pregnant women. And then, as we said, the new cohort that has come on board, less than 15. We are liaising seriously with Ghana Education Service to make sure that all those who are eligible will have their vaccines. And as we discussed, is the stronger population. That's where we are having challenge. So how do we really convince them to have? Because they are strong. When they even have, they don't come with the severer and critical cases. So how do we package for them? But for us really to fight against this in Bono East, we have to make sure they come on board. So those who qualify has not changed. In fact, we are expanding it more. And so we should make sure that, and we should have a message to reach them. And you know, in the beginning, because the noise were more than 18, pregnant women are not part. It's still stuck with most of us. But that is what we will have to bring on board to make sure that we all have. And the strategy now we are using mainly is co-opting the political leaders. When I say political leaders, I'm talking about the religious groups, the chief imams, the traditional leaders, the pastors, and then the ministers. They are really leading the campaign. And to surprise you, they are asking for stricter measures and mandates to ensure that people come for the vaccines.
All right, so which of the vaccines are available in the Bono East region?
We have the AstraZeneca one, AstraZeneca. We have Pfizer. We have Moderna. Okay. So these vaccines are available. The challenge people come, we want the one that we take.
Yes, the one shot. Yes, and that's the reason I asked that question, because there are those who naturally fear syringes. They don't want to have anything to do with an injection. And so it's not so much of the myths or the fear of getting impotent or all those things. It's just that they do not want to think of, taking an injection at all. Do I have that option when I come to a center? Can I say if that the one dose is available? Can I get that instead of getting the AstraZeneca, which is a double dose vaccine?
Yes, that option is there for you.
Okay.
So anytime you come and then we have the one and you opt for it, we will make sure you are given.
Interesting. So beyond this interview, which I know you're hoping will create some awareness, especially in the Bono East region, what else is the directorate there doing to ensure that people are vaccinated? Because we've answered that important question, the why. Why do people still need to be vaccinated, even though our numbers are going down in terms of infections and deaths? So what more are you hoping to do to address the issue?
So the religious leaders are now going to lead this campaign. What we are going to do right now is we are liaising, and this is spearheaded by the regional minister himself, with the clergy, the chief imams. And then we are going to make sure, how do people get their vaccines every Friday, every Saturday, Sunday? They are going to lead that aspect. The traditional leaders also, and then we are also talking about the market queens. You come to Techiman, you go to Atebubu, you go to the fish market. Those in charge of those areas are also going to lead and going to be asking the people who patronize their services, are you vaccinated? To create the environment and the demand for that. So this is what we are going to do. We're also going to liaise with my very sister, Director of Education, Mrs. Amwa, how we will make sure that all the students who are qualified for the vaccine in all our secondary schools and high school have it. Surprisingly, when we did the analysis for Bono East, And people will just presume and think that, look, all the people who are senior high school, when they are given the vaccines, will be able to make it. We have a lot of people who are also not captured within that space. And in that case, you also have other ways also for addressing them, where they do their trades or they engage in their services will be. So this is what we want to do. We are supported by other people. And we want to target people, the Kayayi, people who are using the Abuboyas, their groups. How do we are discussing with those leadership, how do you also get their colleagues to make sure that this exercise is the vaccine is undertaken or received by almost everybody. These are the ways that we are devising and we are going for Bunois. And in fact, we are now even breaking our targets by sub-districts. We are not going to do only sub-districts. Techiman, you are supposed to give 15,000. No, you have to break it down to the 7 sub-districts that you have. And then let us know the amount that you are supposed to give every day so that we can really track it and make sure that we bring in necessary intervention.
I appreciate your time here this morning. Dr. Amoako Boateng is Director of Health. Adomako Boateng is Bono East Director of Health. Thank you so much for your time this morning. And we've been talking about vaccine hesitancy in the Bono East region. And the most important question has been answered. Why must you take a vaccine despite the decline in the number of infections and deaths? And as Doc explained, there's a global trend in other places like South Africa, he mentioned New York, and even in China, they're beginning to see a rise in the numbers again. And so if you have observed the character of the pandemic, you know that usually here in Africa, we are at the receiving front. And so when the trend begins elsewhere, we are usually the last to catch up with that. And so you must get your vaccine if you haven't done so. It's important. And don't forget to continue to wash your hands and stay safe. You're watching the AM show with me, Venice Apubedulansa, and my colleague Benjamin Akakpo. We're taking a quick breather now. When we come back, we'll take you to the Black Stars where the Eid celebrations are happening.